Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance of giving back. We're always looking at the bigger picture. We are ARA, reliable solutions for facilities and infrastructure.
Welcome to Season 2 of Everyday Greatness, and thanks for watching. I'm your host, Barnaby Howarth. This is a show designed to help people realise there is greatness in being an everyday Harry Sacker roles. Today, I'm going to be talking about corporate social responsibility with the major sponsor of Everyday Greatness, ARA Group. I'll be speaking to Edward Federman and Mouche Phillips from ARA about why the group gives so much back to the community rather than use their own profits to line their own pockets. Giving back to the world feels good. As an individual, it isn't that difficult to work out whether you should or shouldn't help others financially. If you have more than enough, it's a no-brainer that you share your excess with people who don't. For business though, it isn't quite that simple. Businesses exist to make a profit, and shareholders, employees, investors, and anybody else who measures success by bottom line profit results would argue that you don't need to give too much back. But corporate social responsibility would argue that you should give back as much as you can. Companies are doing this in all sorts of ways. Some skim off the bare minimum of their profits and give token amounts to charity. Others commit to supporting various groups with a predetermined annual amount. And others still, like the ARA Group, think that giving back is so essential, they've created an entire arm of their business to do just that. The ARA Endowment Fund raises money to give back to the communities that ARA lives and works in. In 2009, the ARA Endowment Fund was established as a way for staff to make donations to a range of Australian charities. The fund has made donations to over 40 registered charities. The goal for the Endowment Fund is to grow the principal balance so it can provide meaningful donations to Australian charities in perpetuity. The ARA Endowment Fund is focused on 3 partnerships: the Go Foundation, the Indigenous Literacy Foundation, and the David Lynch Foundation. ARA is a company with a huge heart, and it's a privilege of mine to not only know Ed Federman and Mouche Phillips, but to welcome them to Everyday Greatness. Ed and Mouche, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Barnaby. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Businesses working hard to make a profit is like climbing a mountain. Then giving that profit back to the world is like standing on top of that mountain and yelling with a scream of satisfaction that reverberates around the valleys. In fact, it's nothing like that. I just needed a segue to talk about mountains, and that was it. When I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with my sister and my mate a few years ago, we were sitting in camp one afternoon, and a porter limped in carrying a heavy backpack and only wearing one thong with one bare foot. A suave-looking young kid jumped up and offered the porter a new pair of thongs, but then threw in a caveat. He said, "These are all yours if you can carry my backpack for me tomorrow." Then a rough-looking older bloke jumped up, rummaged through his bag, pulled something out, and threw a pair of sturdy river crossing shoes to the porter and said, "No, mate, just take these. I don't use them anymore. They're all yours and you don't owe me anything." When some people give, they do it because they think there might be something in it for them. But other people just give because it's the right thing to do. Co-founder and managing director of ARA Group, Edward Federman, is one of the latter. Ed was the driving force behind the ARA Endowment Fund. And to tell me about how the fund was set up and why, I'm extremely proud to say that Edward Federman joins me now on Everyday Greatness. Ed, thanks for joining me.
No, thanks again, Barnaby, for having me.
Before I start though, I believe you have something you want to say.
Yes, I want to wish the junior and senior AFL clubs of Pennant Hills Footy Club best of luck in the finals. May they bring home all the bacon.
Good to go, the D's. ARA Group employs over 2,000 people, and you're the big cheese. You give a lot of people a lot of opportunities. But what was your first job?
Well, as a kid, my first job was caddying. Back when I was a kid, they still had caddies and not just electric buggies. So that's when I started, when I was about 12 years old.
Why is giving back so important to you? What did your parents teach you that helped to instill the importance of giving back?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, it was something that I always saw my mother do. She was a school teacher and didn't make a whole lot of money, but she always gave to the charities that were important to her. And she always instilled in all of us in our family that it was very important to give what we could to the things we wanted to support.
A lot of people use the excuse, if they can't give back, that they can't afford it. Would you agree with that? Have there been times in your life where you've just made giving back a priority even though you couldn't really afford it?
Yes, I have, and it has just been instilled in me. And even starting my adult life, first married, and my wife and I didn't make a whole lot of money. I made $100 a week. My wife made 50% more. She made $150 a week. But we would take our paychecks and cash them, put them in envelopes, and sort out what we needed our funds for rent and food and petrol and a little bit of savings and a little bit of giving away. So it was just something we did right from the very beginning of our adult lives, and it's just been very important to us.
So tell me about the ARA group. When did it start and how?
Well, Leo Brown, who's the fellow I co-founded the ARA group with, we worked together for a large company in the 1990s here in Australia. And we always said, well, look, someday we should do something on our own. We really like working together. We work together really well. We don't always agree, but we always work, always listen to each other and usually get a better answer as a result. So in 2001, both of our lives had got to a point where we had the flexibility and we were willing to back ourselves to get going, and that's what we did. And we started off by buying a couple of businesses, and we've been very, very fortunate that a lot of good managers and great skilled workforce came on board with our company, and we've developed it over the last 18 years. We just had our 18th anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell me about the ARA Endowment Fund. When did it start and how?
It started 10 years ago, and we'd grown a bit, and we'd give away little bits here and there, but I wanted to focus, and I wanted to leave a lasting legacy of our company. If nothing else, I want to leave something significant for the Australian community, for which we're a part of. And so 10 years ago, we started the ARA Endowment Fund. And we started giving, employees would give, and some of our senior managers would give a little more. And it started to build up, but the amounts were quite paltry that we had to give away, because the way the fund works is the principal balance stays intact, and the earnings from the fund are given to registered Australian charities. But over the 10 years, it's built its way up to a pretty significant balance, and we're sitting here today with almost $2 million in the fund, and that gets us roughly $80,000 to $90,000 that we can give away to registered Australian charities.
So, tell me about the groups that the Endowment Fund support and why.
Well, about a year ago, or a year and a half ago, we decided instead of giving small amounts to lots of different charities, we'd focus on 2 or 3 that were very important to us. And we chose 3. One is the Go Foundation, which is the foundation of Michael O'Loughlin and Adam Goods, in which they're supporting and helping Indigenous young folks get a better education and a better start in life. The second one is the Indigenous Literacy Foundation, which has literacy programs in remote communities throughout Australia. And the third one is the David Lynch Foundation. They help populations at risk, being teenagers, victims of domestic violence, and veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, to learn transcendental meditation.
So the Endowment Fund supports those 3 groups, but does ARA support other community groups as well?
Yes, we do. Yeah, the company itself has been a champion sponsor of the Taronga Zoo well over 10 years now. We've also been a major supporter of the Sydney Writers' Festival, and in fact, the last 2 years, we've been its first corporate principal partner. We also have worked with a number of other corporates in supporting Tumbalong Park during the Vivid Festival in Sydney. And we also have recently become a principal partner at NIDA.
So you mentioned earlier the endowment fund is currently worth $2 million.
Yes.
Where would you like to see it in 10 years' time?
I really wanted to have $10 million. And when it's at that level, we're literally giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars to our partners every single year in perpetuity. And that's a lasting legacy that our company can leave for the community, and something that we're working very, very hard to do.
How does it make you feel lying awake at night knowing that the company that you helped build gives so much back to the world?
It makes me feel really good. I think it's really important. I just believe businesses as well as individuals have a responsibility to give to the communities in which they live and work. It's just our obligation. If we have the ability to do it, I think we should do it.
Do you give so much back because you are expecting some sort of reward yourself, or do you just give back because you're a good bloke?
Oh, that's a great question, Barnaby. Thanks for asking. I try and be a good bloke. I just think it's something I want to do. I don't expect anything back in return. In fact, the best amounts that you give is when you're not being asked for something, and that's really meaningful. And that's what we try and do. Nobody asked us to choose these foundations. Nobody's asked us to be a sponsor of anything we really have. It's what we've chosen to do, then it's the right thing to do. And yes, it makes me feel good, but I don't expect anything back.
How does it make you feel as a father, setting the example to children in your family that giving back is the right thing to do?
Oh, it makes me feel really good. I have 2 children, and I think they see that it's very important, and that as when I move on, that my wife and I want to leave something behind for the charities we individually support as well.
So tell me a bit about the foundations you support. Why did you decide to support the David Lynch Foundation?
Well, I've been doing transcendental meditation for 47 years. It's a part of my life. I don't really know what impact my life it would have on my life if I didn't. And the David Lynch Foundation uses this technique. It's a very simple technique for people to relieve stress in their lives and just help them cope and help activate parts of their brain, and that just makes life a little bit better, I think.
What did your business partner, Leo Brown, say when you went to him and said, I think we should use millions of dollars of our profits to give back to the world, give it away?
Initially, Leo was a little skeptical, but it wasn't like I had to bring him kicking and screaming. He supported it, and he's been a very generous donator to the fund itself, and very big supporter, and he's a great bloke.
Great bloke, nice. Do you feel when you make decisions to give money to other foundations and charities, do you feel like you have a corporate social responsibility obligation as a business?
Yeah, I think we do. I think it's as much as being a safe workplace for our employees, to provide opportunities for our employees, and obviously to make sure we provide excellent service to our customers. It's just part of business today. I think I think it's just part of what a corporation does as part of its agenda in its day-to-day work. It's important to give something back.
So when you're lying awake at night, do you ever think to yourself, just nod to yourself and think, what I'm doing is pretty bloody good?
Occasionally.
I do. I'm proud of what we've done as a company. I'm proud of the company we've built, the opportunities we've given employees, and very proud of the foundation that the endowment fund that we've established. Yeah, I do feel good. I enjoy what I do, and I just want to keep doing it and keep doing more and provide more opportunities for our employees, provide good service for our customers, and really see this endowment fund get to a very substantial amount, and to know that thing's going to be there, as I said earlier, in perpetuity, and to build a lasting legacy. That is really important, and I do think about it, and it is important to me.
Well, Edward Federman, I hope you give plenty more opportunities. Thank you so much for joining us on Everyday Greatness. Now we're going to do the Everyday Greatness Shuffle, and I'm going to bring Mouche Phillips into the hot seat.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Barnaby.
Mouche, welcome.
Thank you.
If irony were a strawberry, we'd all be eating a lot of smoothies right now. In the classic Australian story, playing Beatty Bow, a young Australian settler girl is magically transported to modern-day Sydney by some young kids playing the game, Beatty Bow. The real-life actress who played the part of Beatty Bow, and who's also my next guest today, is Mouche Phillips. The irony comes in the fact that Mouche grew up with stars in her eyes. She was an actress in several television and movie productions and played large roles in the Sydney art scene. While she was mixing in the circles she was used to and comfortable in, she came across Edward Federman when ARA became the principal partner of the Sydney Writers' Festival, and Ed magically transported Mouche to the ARA Group as Director of Engagement and Foundation, where she now runs the ARA Endowment Fund. In her previous roles in the arts, Mouche was the scroungeur, always hitting up corporate groups to fund her next project. But now Mouche is the scroungee, where various groups hit her up, asking her for help to get their projects off the ground. Like Beatty Bow to modern-day Sydney, Mouche Phillips has been magically transported to the seat next to me. Mouche Phillips, welcome.
Thank you.
Before I start, I believe you have something you want to say.
Yes, congratulations to Bardia McKinnon in her performance of An Intervention. I heard it was fabulous at the 505. Well done.
Well done, Bardia. So as a scroungeur in your previous life, how hard was it trying to get support from corporates to fund your arts projects?
I call it a tree-shaking position, not a scrounger, but anyway. So, look, it depends on the project and it depends on the organisation and their creative vision to how someone's going to respond about whether they want to support it. If it's philanthropic, that's a different kind of approach to wanting to give money, but if it's commercial, there's obviously a transactional relationship there. So there's got to be benefits of interest to them to want to come on board and support it. So you've got to come from two different places. So for the most part, I was looking after corporate partnerships. So it was very transactional. So you'd have a law firm, so forth, who'd want to come and have a gala night with their clients of people they want to impress, and hopefully you had some kind of product or content that interests them to do that. And so that would be easy if the content was really strong. But if sometimes it was a little bit more left field, a little bit creative, a bit underground, they're the harder ones to kind of get, corporate partnerships too. But philanthropists were kind of more likely to be behind those ones.
Yeah. So as a scroungee now, how important is it that the ARA Group gives so much back to the art scene in Sydney?
Yeah, look, it's interesting gear change for me on that, because obviously I know firsthand a lot of arts organisations and their financial struggles that they have, and of course I would love ARA to solve everybody's problem and support all of them, but obviously we have to be a bit strategic and look at how we can best, what's the best impact we can, support someone. And if it's a drop in the ocean of a very big problem, then we know that that's probably not going to be a great end result for all of us. But it's a nice place to be, and I just have the obviously have the experience now to kind of really ask the important questions when someone's coming to us for money, because I know what it's like from both sides.
When you were back on the other side and you were trying to get money from companies, what was the most common excuse you got when they rejected your applications?
Going to law firms and them telling you they just don't have a budget, and you're sitting there being served, in a 20-story building, by butlers and people, and you're just sort of looking around the room and you're going, okay, they just don't have a corporate social conscience and they just don't want to do it unless, and that sort of was the hard part, I think. So going to certain companies like that of really, really big financial scope and who couldn't find 10 or 20 grand to support a arts project or a writers' festival or a Sydney festival or something like that was, it seemed a bit rough, I have to say, yeah.
So now you're on the other side of the fence, a scroungee, if you will. What do you find is the biggest barrier to being able to provide funding for people's groups?
Well, I think, one thing that Ed and I talked about when I was working at the Sydney Writers' Festival was how much impact you had by giving a small amount. Obviously, you can't support everybody,
So now that you're on the other side of the fence, a scroungee, if you will, what are the biggest barriers you find in providing funding for groups that hit you guys up?
Obviously, you can't support everyone, and there's lots of fantastic causes, arts projects, and things that are, well-meaning, but we have to be more targeted and more strategic to have the most impact that we can when we align ourselves with them, I guess is the focus that I have to kind of keep myself, kind of conservatively focused on while I'm doing this job.
So you've had experience in both camps as the scrounger and the scroungee. Why do you find it so important to support smaller creative groups through ARA?
Well, our arts funding bodies have a very homogenised approach to who's successful in getting money. And there's a lot of people who just don't fit that model. And I've been in that seat of running independent theatre companies, and we could never get $1 out of the government. Yet we were having sold out shows and incredible responses from audiences and great reviews, and yet we couldn't get a cent. We'd apply for things over and over again. So they're the people that do need support, and they're certainly worthy of it because what they're doing is, really great stuff. And so if that's the only option for them, then of course and they can't succeed in actually getting funding, then of course they need people like us to step in and support them so they can get to the next level. And eventually the funding will come when you have a certain amount of merit, I think the government's. But it's obviously that, especially in this current government, our funding pools are shrinking at a rate of knots. So people like ARA and companies like ARA are going to be needed more than ever, I think.
Yeah.
So
what are some of the smaller creative projects that wouldn't have got off the ground if it weren't for ARA's support?
Well, we're sort of still working on that. We're focusing on the foundation at the moment with the three charities that we support. Obviously, the Sydney Writers' Festival is a middle range arts organisation, and they do run on a very tight budget, and it's a small team of 10 roughly per season, and they have incredible overheads to run that, and obviously bringing out international authors and so forth. I mean, that's a huge one because the more money they have, the more international authors and fantastic lineup they can invite. If they don't have the funds and the resources to do it, it's going to shrink very quickly. So I think that's a really good example of that. And there's obviously other, Night is another good one too. There's lots of youth programs through that ARA is now be able to get behind, and there's an Indigenous scholarship that ARA is supporting through NIDA, so that's an opportunity. NIDA is a fantastic institution, but it's an incredibly expensive educational process for anyone to be, to participate in. And so anyone who in an Indigenous background is able to apply for that and have some of those costs covered by our contribution. So that's, I think, really significant.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a bit about the Endowment Fund. What's the big fundraiser for you guys each year?
Yeah, well, at the moment it's sort of turning into an annual gala dinner, big soiree, very expensive tables, which no one seems to have a problem with within our Rolodex to come in and have a good night. And that's my job, just to make sure that everyone has a really, really good time. And so there's not a lot of pressure to donate on the night because they've already sort of paid for it through the tables. So I just create as much fun as I can for the night, and obviously allow the foundations to sort of update the audience of what progress has happened over the last time we all got together in a room and had some fun. So that's kind of, hopefully that will build and that will turn into a more in-demand ticket over the years to come, so we can get to that sort of $10 million kind of endowment fund target.
Well, make it in demand. You've got the floor. Give it a plug. When's it on?
The next one is going to be at the Ivy on the 25th of October at the Ivy Ballroom. So it's going to be for about 250 people. So the tables will be available, but we have to obviously just see what our capacity is going to be there. So.
And how do people get tickets?
I can't tell you that at the moment. So we'll have to put it up on the website, on the ARA group website. We'll have a link that people can come and buy a table and support us. And the one big part of it is ARA picks up the bill for the evening, and every single ticket sold goes directly to the fund. So there's no coming out of the kind of pockets of people's ticket price, so that we're paying for the night. It's all purely 100% for the fund.
Beautiful. Yeah. So how else does the endowment fund raise money? Does staff contribute to the fund as well?
There is contributions through staff, through...
There was $60,000 this past year given by staff into the fund, and the company matches all those donations dollar for dollar.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like a salary sacrifice kind of thing that people also can do.
People just have it withheld from their pay, and they get a deduction for it.
Yeah, right.
Beautiful.
And obviously we do other little events over the year. We did one with Justine Clark at the Monkey Bar Theatre, which is another partnership of ours that we support. We've got the naming rights of the ARA Darling Quarter Theatre down there now. So Justine Clark, who's an ambassador for the ILF Foundation, she came and did one of her kids' shows, and all the ticket sales of that went to the fund. So we can do little things like that. You don't just have to come to a gala dinner. You can also just give directly through the website and donate through that way and get your tax deductions. So there's many options to do that. But yeah, we try and do a few little things through the year and then some big ones as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sounds incredible. Yeah. So as a mother, how do you feel that your children are growing up in a world where they're seeing through your example that giving back to the world is the right thing to do?
Oh, look, my kids are definitely well behind it. I mean, we've got that rule with both, luckily, two of my kids who are 16 and 18 are making money, and they have money to spend, money to save, and something to give away. And they go and buy Christmas presents at UNICEF, or buy the goat and things like that, so that that's money that goes back, or Medicine Sans Frontiers and stuff. So they happily do that on a regular basis. So it's a beginning, and I think it's just that learned behaviour. Once it's ingrained in them, hopefully they'll continue into their adult life.
So do you see corporate social responsibility as an obligation for businesses to tick a box and say they're doing the right thing, or do you find it an essential human contribution?
Well, you're applying two theories there, because one's towards the individual and one's towards the company. But the individuals, look, that's an individual choice. But any company that's making considerable amounts of profit, I do unfortunately find in Australia there isn't a lot of mindset like Ed's and Leo's into doing that. And hopefully ARA can sort of start being a bit of a poster boy company for that, and lead the way and be a bit of a pioneer and trying to encourage more of that, responsibility. But it's not something I've experienced personally. I mean, I've worked for a lot of not-for-profits, and people don't automatically just assume that they should support it. So without getting a transactional benefit, which is unfortunate, sometimes we just don't have them to give. But hopefully people will. I think there's a lot more out there now in the land of in the world, basically, to encourage people to start thinking about it a bit more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit more messaging out there.
Is corporate Australia socially responsible?
I don't think enough. I don't think it's even a drop in the ocean compared to some other countries. And you look at, Glasgow completely funds the National Theatre, and it's not relying on any philanthropy or any private donors or any of that kind of stuff. And then, there's a lot of other progressive places, and I've just been overseas in Europe, and kind of, you do open your eyes a little bit to say, how do they fund this? And you just find out it's some incredible donor, or it's some 100% government supported, or whatever. So I think that there's a lot more that we've got to change still.
So how can we be better?
I don't know, maybe there's a government incentive to kind of get some tax breaks for people who do give to charities a bit more, that's more significant. And so it encourages them a bit more to do so. Because I'd personally, if I have a tax bill, I'd rather give my money to a charity and take it off my tax bill. So that's my way of thinking. So I'll write a check, because I don't want to give it to the tax man, I'd rather give it to a not-for-profit.
Beautiful.
So hopefully people can do the same.
Mouche Phillips, thank you so much for joining us. And it was a pleasure having you, Ed. Thank you, Mouche and Ed. And thank you, ARA, for everything you guys do. Thank you both for joining me on Everyday Greatness today. Thanks to the ARA group for sponsoring this show. Thanks to Look Studio for filming this show. And thank you for watching this show. I hope you can join us next month, where I'll be speaking about the importance of keeping kids active. My guests will be Tara Hayes, entrepreneur, mother and wife of AFL legend Lenny Hayes, and Jackie Pimsapasm, personal trainer, mother and wife. If you have any comments or suggestions, or you just want to check out a bit more about what this show's all about, go to our website at www.everydaygreatness.com.au, or send me an email at barnaby.howarth@everydaygreatness.com.au. I hope you can join us next month, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. But if not, I hope you can lift your head up, push your shoulders back, and walk down the street proud of being an everyday Joe bag of donuts. Thank you.